Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Today's portion is Parashah 2, Noach. It's in Genesis chapter 6, starting on verse 9. I'll give everyone a chance to turn there. Genesis 6, verse 9. Here is the history of Noach. In his generation, Noach was a man righteous and wholehearted. Noach walked with God. Noach fathered 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth was corrupt before God. The earth was filled with violence. God saw the earth, and yes, it was corrupt, for all living beings had corrupted their way on the earth. God said to Noach, "The end of all living things has come before me, for because of them the earth is filled with violence. I will destroy them along with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. You are to make the ark with rooms and cover it with pitch, both outside and inside. Here is how you are to build it. The length of the ark is to be 450 feet, its width 75 feet, and its height 45 feet. You are to make an opening for daylight in the ark 18 inches below its roof. Put a door in its side and build it with lower, second, and third decks. Then I myself will bring the flood of water over the earth to destroy from under heaven every living thing that breathes. Everything on earth will be destroyed. But I will establish my covenant with you. You will come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. From every living thing, from each kind of living being, you are to bring 2 into the ark to keep them alive with you. They are to be male and female. Of each kind of bird, each kind of livestock, and each kind of animal creeping on the ground, 2 are to come to you, so that they can be kept alive. Also take from all the kinds of foods that are eaten, and collect it for yourself. It is to be food for you and for them. This is what Noach did. He did all that God ordered him to do. Adonai said to Noach, "Come into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you alone in this generation are righteous before me. Of every clean animal you are to take 7 couples, and of the animals that are not clean, 1 couple. Also of the birds in the air, take 7 couples, in order to preserve their species throughout the earth. For in 7 more days I will cause it to rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. I will wipe out every living thing that I have made from the face of the earth." Noach did all that Adonai ordered him to do. Noach was 600 years old when the water flooded the earth. Noach went into the ark with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives because of the floodwaters. Of clean animals, of animals that are not clean, of birds, and of everything that creeps on the ground, couples, male and female, went into Noach in the ark, as God had ordered Noach. After 7 days, the water flooded the earth. On the 17th day of the 2nd month of the 600th year of Noach's life, all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of the sky were opened. It rained on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On that same day, Noach entered the ark with Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the sons of Noach. Noach's wife and the 3 wives of his sons accompanying them, they and every animal of every species, all the livestock of every species, every animal that creeps on the ground of every species, and every bird of every species, all sorts of winged creatures. They went to Noach in the ark, couples from every kind of living thing that breathes. Those that entered went in, male and female, from every kind of living being, as God had ordered him, and Adonai shut him inside. The flood was 40 days on the earth. The water grew higher and floated the ark, so that it was lifted up off the earth. The water overflowed the earth and grew deeper until the ark floated on the surface of the water. The water overpowered the earth mightily. All the high mountains under the entire sky were covered. The water covered the mountains by more than 22.5 feet. All living beings that moved on the earth perished: birds, livestock, other animals, insects, and every human being. Everything in whose nostrils was the breath of the Spirit of life, whatever was on dry land, died. He wiped out every living thing on the surface of the ground, not only human beings, but livestock, creeping animals, and birds in the air. They were wiped out from the earth. Only Noach was left, along with those who were with him in the ark. The water held power over the earth for 150 days. God remembered Noach, every living thing, and all the livestock with him in the ark. So God caused a wind to pass over the earth, and the water began to go down. Also the fountains of the deep and the windows of the sky were stopped. The rain from the sky was restrained, and the water came back from completely covering the earth. It was after 150 days that the water went down. On the 17th day of the seventh month, the ark came to rest in the mountains of Ararat. The water kept going down until the 10th month. On the first day of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains were seen. After 40 days, Noach opened the window of the ark which he had built, and he sent out a raven, which flew back and forth until the water had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove to see if the water had gone from the surface of the ground. But the dove found no place for her feet to rest, so she returned to him in the ark, because the water still covered the whole earth. He put out his hand, took her, and brought her into him in the ark. He waited another 7 days and again sent the dove out from the ark. The dove came into him in the evening, and in her mouth was a freshly plucked olive leaf. So Noach knew that the water had cleared from the earth. He waited yet another 7 days and sent out the dove, and she didn't return to him any more. By the first day of the first month of the 601st year, the water had dried up from off the earth. So Noach removed the covering of the ark and looked, and yes, the surface of the ground was dry. It was on the 27th day of the second month that the earth was dry. God said to Noach, "Go out from the ark, you, your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing you have with you, birds, livestock, and every animal that creeps on the earth, so that they can swarm on the earth, be fruitful, and multiply on the earth." So Noach went out with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives. Every animal, every creeping thing, and every bird, whatever moves on the earth, according to their families, went out of the ark. Noach built an altar to Adonai. Then he took from every clean animal and every clean bird, and he offered burnt offerings on the altar. Adonai smelled the sweet aroma, and Adonai said in his heart, "I will never again curse the ground because of humankind, since the imaginings of a person's heart are evil from his youth. Nor will I ever again destroy all living things as I have done. So long as the earth exists, sowing time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night will not cease." God blessed Noach and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you will be upon every wild animal, every bird in the air, every creature populating the ground, and all the fish in the sea. They have been handed over to you. Every moving thing that lives will be food for you. Just as I gave you green plants before, so now I give you everything. Only flesh with its life, which is its blood, you are not to eat. I will certainly demand an accounting for the blood of your lives. I will demand it from every animal and from every human being. I will demand from every human being an accounting for the life of his fellow human being. Whoever sheds human blood, by a human being will his own blood be shed. For God made human beings in his image. And you, people, be fruitful, multiply, swarm on the earth and multiply on it." God spoke to Noach and his sons with him. He said, "As for me, I am herewith establishing my covenant with you, with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every wild animal with you, all going out of the ark, every animal on earth. I will establish my covenant with you, that never again will all living beings be destroyed by the waters of a flood, and there will never again be a flood to destroy the earth." God added, "Here is the sign of the covenant I am making between myself and you and every living creature with you, for all generations to come. I am putting my rainbow in the cloud. It will be there as a sign of the covenant between myself and the earth. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth and the rainbow is seen in the cloud, I will remember my covenant, which is between myself and you and every living creature of any kind. And the water will never again become a flood to destroy all living beings. The rainbow will be in the cloud, so that when I look at it, I will remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of any kind on the earth. God said to Noach, "This is the sign of the covenant which I have established between myself and every living creature on the earth." The sons of Noach who went out from the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham is the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noach, and the whole earth was populated by them. Noach, a farmer, was the first to plant a vineyard. He drank so much of the wine that he got drunk and lay uncovered in his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father shamefully exposed, went out and told his two brothers. Shem and Japheth took a cloak, put it over both of their shoulders, and walking backward, went in and covered their naked father. Their faces were turned away so that they did not see their father lying there shamefully exposed. When Noach awoke from his wine, he knew what his youngest son had done to him. He said, "Cursed be Canaan. He will be a servant of servants to his brothers." Then he said, "Blessed be Adonai, the God of Shem. Canaan will be their servant. May God enlarge Japheth. He will live in the tents of Shem, but Canaan will be their servant." After the flood, Noach lived 350 years. In all, Noach lived 950 years. Then he died. Amen.
Okay. We have another very long Torah portion. There's so many topics that could rightfully be discussed today. The one I'd like to focus on to begin with has to do with the Great Flood. Now we'll continue then with the topic of evil. Now the questions we're going to look at today that are not so much about the details of the flood, and Noach is these things have been known to us since we were children. But rather we're going to ask why. Why was there a flood at all? And then we're going to find out, where did evil come from? Now for this, we start by backing up a little bit to the last words of last week's Torah portion. And it says this, starting at Genesis 6:1. If you have your Bibles still open, follow along with me at Genesis 6:1. In time, when men began to multiply on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive, and they took wives for themselves whomever they chose. Adonai said, "My spirit will not live in human beings forever. They too are flesh. Therefore, their lifespan is to be 120 years. Now, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them, and these were the ancient heroes, men of renown. God saw that the people on earth were very wicked, that all their imaginings of their hearts were always of evil only. And Adonai regretted that he had made humankind on earth and aggrieved his heart. And Adonai said, I'll wipe out humankind whom I've created from the whole earth, and not only human beings, but animals, creeping things, birds in the air, for I regret I ever made them. But Noah found grace in the sight of God. Well, here we see mention of the mysterious Nephilim that has perplexed both Hebrews and Christians for millennia. Now notice how immediately after introducing Nephilim and the terrible problem that they created, as we continue reading, we immediately see the flood story begin. There is no pause. There is no separation. Common literary understanding and the way we read any document, the way they read documents in ancient days, says that the flood and the reasons for it had to do with what was written immediately before it in Genesis 6, 1 through 4, and it was about the Nephilim. Now, to make matters even more mysterious, this Genesis 6 passage speaks of the sons of God looking upon the daughters of men who were irresistibly attractive to them. So these sons of God came down from heaven and they made wives of these women and they had children with them. The resultant offspring became in English heroes, men of renown. Now, what in the world does that mean? Well, heroes is more often translated from the Hebrew into mighty men, and it comes from the original Hebrew of this passage, and the term that is used is gibor. Or more literally, because it's a plural, it's giborim. Now, the truth is that the term giborim is not well understood. And so there are various meanings attached as more or less best guesses. Now, what can be gathered, however, is that these were unusual men. They were physically powerful men with special skills, even with special knowledge. They were quite different from other typical males. In fact, at times, Gibor is translated in other Bible passages as giants. Now, the main issue, though, that is so tantalizing about this passage, one that is simply bypassed in nearly all theological discussions about Genesis 6, 1 through 4, is that these Nephilim giants are unambiguously connected to the reason that God caused the great flood. Notice the flow of action about these mysterious sons of God, the Nephilim and the flood. It is the illicit existence of the Nephilim, apparently the offspring of the sons of God. And we need to think of these particular sons of God in a more literal sense. These are of a spirit family. These are some of whom God created prior to him creating this physical universe that we read about starting in Genesis 1. They had existed a long time. And the name the Hebrews gave to them, for lack of a better series of words, is sons of God. So these sons of God had mated with human women, which directly led, we're told, to the wanton evil that now infected all mankind. Even to the point that it somehow infected the animal kingdom. Don't ask me how, I don't know. God's solution was to purge the earth with a great deluge. Now, Noach was the sole remaining man, apparently, with the sole remaining family on earth that had not been infected, either with the genetic material of the many humans spawned by the Nephilim, infected females, or that had not been completely drawn into the great evil that these offspring advocated and they carried out. Now, the reality that Noach's sons, starting with Ham, perpetrated evil after the flood. Well, this tells us that God's purpose for the flood could not have been to entirely, once and for all, eradicate evil and sin, whose source was Adam and Eve. Because you know what? If it was so, God certainly failed. It's my belief, and I'm accepting I cannot say this with 100% certainty, that while the purpose of the flood was indeed God dealing with the evil and dysfunction of all animal and human life, it was caused by the Nephilim. So it was a kind of a do-over event, if you would, that wouldn't prevent the type of evil that they caused, nor even their presence from appearing again, but it would rid the earth of it for a time. See, it was Yeshua's purpose to come to deal with the evil and sin caused by Adam and Eve. In Yeshua's first advent, it was to provide a means to atone for it. In his second advent, it will be to eradicate evil everywhere it exists. Whether it's within the souls of humans and the very nature of Satan as demons, everywhere. Bottom line, in the flood story, God does not blame or even hold Satan accountable. You notice that? He blames and holds accountable the sons of God and the Nephilim. But in the biblical explanation for mankind's need of a Messiah, who does he blame? Satan. And thus in the New Testament, we see Christ doing battle with him. We don't see him doing battle with the Nephilim. Since whether it is the Nephilim or Satan, the issue is evil and the sin it generates. So let's talk about evil. We see it rising and rising in our day to horrific levels. I think no better example of it just happened a couple of weeks ago in Israel. Barbarity that I don't even think we have the words to describe. And yet we have so many people today who don't even know how to define evil any longer. Even saying the word, such and such is evil, can get you in trouble because you're called judgmental. You need to be judgmental. You need to judge between good and evil and abide by it. The Hebrew sages say a couple of important things about evil that we don't generally find in Christian doctrine. And it is that humans have both a good and an evil inclination within us. They say that it's because of those two opposing inclinations that we have the ability to make moral choices. In fact, in other lessons, I have demonstrated that even the concept of such a thing as morality is exclusively human and has been heavenly defined, divinely gifted to us by means of, first, the so-called natural law, and then later on by the law of Moses. I was thinking as Naathan was reading these passages, one of the things that God told Noah to do, other than bring animals 2 by 2 on the animals, to make sure he brought 7 pairs of what kind of animals? Clean. How would he know what a clean animal is if something had not been laid down that said this is clean, this is unclean, right? So somehow there was a standard. All right. I use the term natural law, all right, to just give it a name. But an even more difficult issue to deal with is that the Holy Scriptures claim that God created both good and evil, although not necessarily in the sense that might immediately come to mind when I say that. Could it be that the God of Israel, creator of all things, seen and unseen, also created evil? Now, I've often said that humans do not and will not ever have a vocabulary that can accurately and fully describe things of the spirit world nor understand the workings of God's mind. The origin of evil, how did it get here? What is it? How does it operate? Is one of the most mysterious and baffling of things. So first off, I want to talk about how our universe works. Because we are subject to its laws and its boundaries, to its limitations. God did not create the universe, put us within it, place the earth and then us upon it in a perfect position to observe the universe, and then expect us to somehow operate and have understanding as though we weren't an integral part of this universe. Our universe has definite attributes, although at times we don't pause to consider them. Let me tell you of a scientific finding that is so recent that you may not have yet been exposed to it. It is that many in the world's body of physicists have now come to a general agreement that they have tried to avoid for decades and decades. The universe seems to have an underlying foundation of intelligent design to it, as opposed to it coming about by a series of random chemical reactions over a long period of time that had a relatively happy ending. In other words, chaos did not accidentally achieve order. But even more, that our universe is clearly designed as biocentric. That is, it was designed for intelligent life to appear. Otherwise, if there was no human life to observe it, to live among it, what possible purpose could there be for it to even exist? Now, that's not news for believers in the God of Israel, nor to the billions on this planet who adhere to some religion or another whereby a creator that is superior to humans is acknowledged. But when the scientific community, that for the past 2 centuries has been so diametrically opposed to even considering that there might be some overriding intelligence in the cosmic force for it to even come into existence, some force that's vastly superior to man that orders the way the universe unfolds, the first thing one must ask is, why this sudden admission? What happened? Well, when historically agnostic physicists and mathematicians come to this conclusion and we ask them what changed, we have to realize that in their minds, even when they acknowledge this, most of them are in no way acknowledging God. The recent discovery, and a whole series of discoveries, that caused this great shift in their thinking, a discovery that exceeds even Einstein's world-changing work to develop his famous theory of relativity, is the discovery of mathematical evidence that there exists at least 10 dimensions, and probably 11. Now, this discovery is part of a whole new realm of physics. And chief among these is string theory, which is the result of a newer field of physics called quantum physics or quantum mechanics. Now, what makes this notion of many dimensions a bit difficult to comprehend is that our universe consists of only 4 of those 10 or maybe 11 dimensions, and those 4 dimensions are something we're all familiar with: height, width, length, and time. Now, 3 of those 4, height, width, length, those are measurements of space. Look about you in this room. This is space. Height, we have width, we have length. The fourth is time. So astrophysicists speak of our universe in terms of something they call space-time, those things operating together. No matter how far into space our orbiting space telescopes have peered and probed and measured those same 4 dimensions, that's all they can observe. If that's the case, where did this claim come from for this additional 6 or 7 dimensions? Well, first, these additional dimensions don't exist per se, necessarily, in our universe. Rather, they exist in some other universe, what these physicists might call parallel universes. Not parallel universes in the sense that these other universes that exist in other dimensions are like holding a mirror up to an object and getting a reverse image. Rather, it is that these parallel universes exist simultaneously with ours. Now, theoretically, they could actually exist within our universe, but we have no means to observe them. Or they might exist completely outside our universe, or perhaps some combination of the two. We don't know. Now, this may sound a bit far out, but it really shouldn't. Some of the ancient Hebrew sages seem to describe multiple dimensions. And believe it or not, some of these sages, some of whom lived well before Christ, implied that the scriptures reveal 10 dimensions plus 1 more to give us 11. And now some modern physicists tell us that from the mathematical standpoint, because of an otherwise unexplainable way in which energy and matter behave, there has to be more dimensions that exist than the 4 we can observe in our universe. To help us get a mental picture of this concept, all we have to do is think of heaven as described in the Bible. Heaven obviously does not obey the laws of physics of our universe. Perhaps the clearest indication that heaven is not a place within our universe is that heaven exists outside of time. See, Scripture says that God's heaven is eternal. Eternal means timeless. Eternity is a state of existence that was without the dimension of time. So unlike how it's often portrayed, eternity is not an expression of a really, 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 really long time. As with the song Amazing Grace, it says in one stanza about being with God in heaven when we've been there 10,000 years. The scriptures do not imply that heaven is even an observable part of our universe. After all, how could God have existed in our universe before he created our universe? It is self-evident he did not live within our universe, and our Bibles are pretty clear that this is the case. Listen to Job, chapter 38. Then Adonai answered Job out of the storm, "Who is this darkening my plans with his ignorant words? Stand up like a man and brace yourself." I'm going to ask you questions, and you're going to give the answers. Where were you when I founded the earth? Tell me if you know so much. You know who determined its dimensions, or who stretched the measuring line across it, or on what were its bases sunk, or who laid its cornerstone when the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God? Where did we hear that? Shouted for joy? What does this passage plainly say? It says that when God laid the foundations of the earth, beings called the sons of God were already there with him, as were the morning stars who sang praises as God created the universe. Clearly, the reference to morning stars is not to lifeless balls of burning gas. They are to mysterious spirit beings. And just as clearly, the sons of God are not human beings, since they were there prior to creation. And further, while it might be convenient for us, maybe comforting, to lump all of these spirit beings together and label them as angels, that is not correct. What we learn is that there were spirit beings in existence before creation, before the universe, before time, and there were different groups, there were different categories of these spirit beings. Now, my purpose for telling you all this is to build a context for the next step of our discussion about the creation of evil. Now, stay alert. Believe me, this is a key ingredient that's going to explain an awful lot about our main subject of evil. Our universe was designed, believe it or not, as a universe of opposites. For every up, there's a down. For every far, there's a near. For every hot, there's a cold. Where there's light, there's darkness. So on and so on and so on and so on. Because of the principle of opposites, which is a God-ordained law for our universe, in order for good to exist in some form in our universe, then its opposite, evil, necessarily exists. Let me state this again. Because our universe, I didn't say heaven, our universe requires an opposite, then along with good, there necessarily is evil. You can't have one without the other. They're connected. It's simply the way that our four-dimensional universe operates. So since that's the case, then is there a who or a what that causes evil to exist? Listen to Isaiah 45:7. The one forming light and creating darkness, causing well-being and creating calamity, I'm the Lord who does all of these things. The verse I just read from is from the New American Standard Bible, the NASB. But now look at that same verse in a more literal, direct, word-for-word translation. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and I create evil. I am the Lord that does all these things. Now, this one does hurt our sensibilities. It says bluntly, the Lord creates evil. Is that possible? Look even at the King James Version. I form the light, create darkness, I make peace, I create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. In Amos 3:6. Shall the horn be blown in a city and the people not tremble? Shall evil befall a city and the Lord hath not done it? Lamentations 3:38. Out of the mouth of the Most High proceedeth not evil and good? So why does evil exist in our universe? Because God designated our universe as a universe of opposites. Thus, when God created good, evil came into existence as good's natural opposite. God did not create evil in the sense of God manufacturing evil. God didn't turn to his right and create a mound of good and turn back to his left and create a mound of evil. Rather, evil was a result of his creating good. And placing that spirit of good into our four-dimensional universe, a universe where everything must have an opposite. And I want to tell you something. Some years ago, very smart man that I knew, rest his soul, MIT graduate with honors, came to me and challenged me on this. And I said, okay, but if you're going to challenge me, you have to show me one thing that has ever been discovered that does not have an opposite. And 2 weeks later, he came back and said, I couldn't find anything. The millennial kingdom of God, the 1,000-year reign of Christ, even that's not going to change that dynamic. So how can evil ever be eradicated? The book of Revelation tells us exactly how that's going to happen. Revelation 21:1. Then I saw a new heaven and earth. For the old heaven, the old earth had passed away, and the sea was no longer there. I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared like a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne say, see, God's Shekinah is with mankind, and he will live with them. And they'll be his people, and he himself, God with them, will be their God. He'll wipe away every tear from their eye. There'll no longer be any death. There'll no longer be any mourning. There'll no longer be crying or pain, because the old order has passed away. The current order, as expressed by the very operation order of the physical universe, rules. But it's going to cease to exist. An entire new order that no longer requires opposites is going to take its place. Then and only then will evil finally be defeated. As it is written. All right, would you please rise?
For more teaching and information, visit us online today. Come and be a part of our fellowship. Here at The Seed, enjoy worshiping and learning God's Word with us.